My name is Tessa Moreno, and I am 21 years old. Friday, May 10, at 9:42 a.m., 18 minutes before the nursing graduates were supposed to line up at Centennial Hall, I found my older sister standing where my name had been printed. The dressing hallway smelled like hairspray thick enough to taste, carnations sweating inside plastic sleeves, and dust rising from the velvet curtains behind the stage every time someone brushed past them. Programs slapped softly against nervous palms. The carpet under my shoes had that warm, flattened texture of a room that had already held too many families before mine arrived. My sister Bianca was standing in my assigned nursing row wearing my honor cords, my white pinning stole, and the smile our mother always saved for photographs. When I stepped toward them, my mother put 2 fingers around my wrist and whispered, "Don't make a scene. Let your sister have one thing." Bianca did not look embarrassed. She adjusted the stole at her neck and smiled harder, as if my work was a sweater she had borrowed and decided looked better on her. I looked at the cords first, then the row marker, then my mother's fingers around my wrist. I counted 6 seconds before I moved. By the time the dean reached the M names, Grandpa Luis's brass stamp had already told the registrar what my family thought I would be too quiet to prove. Welcome to By Then I Knew, where quiet people let the truth arrive with paperwork. If you like calm stories about family betrayal, documented proof, and justice that does not need shouting, subscribe and stay with me. Drop your city and what time it is below. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now let me take you back to the first time Bianca learned that my name was easier to borrow when nobody at home defended it. I was 9 years old the first time I understood that work could be useful and still be dismissed before dessert. It was 4th grade science night at my elementary school in Tucson, held inside a cafeteria with 27 trifold boards lined against the wall and a projector coughing warm air onto a beige screen near the milk cooler. The room smelled like floor cleaner, cafeteria pizza, and hot dust inside a machine that should have been replaced 5 years earlier. I had built a hand-washing experiment with glitter, a small black light, and index cards I had cut with safety scissors at our kitchen table. My project was simple. That was the point. I rubbed silver glitter on my palms, shook hands with 4 classmates, touched a plastic lunch tray, a pencil, and the edge of a pretend doorknob made from an upside-down cup. Then I turned on the black light and showed how much of the glitter had moved. I had labeled every card in thick blue marker, shared surfaces, missed fingertips, under nails, between fingers. I had practiced the demonstration 11 times because I wanted the younger students to follow it without needing their parents to explain. A kindergarten boy with a red juice stain on his shirt stood at my table for almost 8 minutes. He kept putting his hands under the black light, pulling them out, and whispering to his father that germs had secret footprints. His father laughed, but he made the boy use sanitizer before they walked away. That felt like winning. The official ribbon was blue and said, "Participation," because every child received one, but my teacher, Mrs. Valdez, also gave me a small classroom safety award printed on cardstock. She said my project was clear enough for 1st graders. I remember the paper's rough edge, where the printer had cut it slightly uneven. I remember the sweet taste of the fruit punch they gave us in paper cups. I remember glitter stuck to my own wrist bone after 3 washes. My mother arrived 34 minutes late with Bianca's black choir garment bag over one arm. Bianca was 13 and had a middle school performance across town the same evening. Her hair had been curled. Her lip gloss smelled like strawberries. My mother's gold hoop earrings swung when she bent over my table, and the glitter from my demonstration clung to her bracelet. She noticed it before she noticed my award. Bianca picked up the cardstock between 2 fingers and said, "It's cute that they gave you a ribbon for soap." She did not say it loudly. She did not have to. My mother smiled in the tired way she smiled when she wanted a moment to pass without making anyone responsible for it. Then she wiped the glitter off her bracelet with a napkin before she touched my ribbon. That was the detail I kept. Not the late arrival. Not the garment bag. Not even Bianca's words, though they stayed sharp. The napkin. My work had marked my mother by accident, and she removed it before she held the proof that I had done something well. We left 9 minutes later, because Bianca needed to warm up before choir. In the car, Bianca sang scales in the front passenger seat, and I sat behind her with my trifold board, pressing into my knees. The cardboard edge left a dent in my skin. I ran my thumb over the ribbon until the letters began to lift. That night established the first rule in our house. Though no one said it directly, Bianca's performances received the full room. My work had to fit between errands. I learned to make my work useful anyway. At 16, I volunteered after school at Desert Vista Community Clinic, mostly restocking forms, wiping counters, and translating discharge instructions for Spanish-speaking patients when the front desk got backed up. The clinic smelled like rubbing alcohol and orange peel from the receptionist's desk, where someone always peeled fruit between intake calls. The waiting room had 18 plastic chairs, and in winter they felt cold through scrubs. One Thursday, an elderly woman held a paper bag of medicines so tightly the bag crinkled every time her hand shook. The printed Spanish instructions said twice daily. The handwritten note from the provider said once at night. I saw both instructions before she reached the exit. I did not announce an emergency. I asked Marcus Reed, who was then a staff nurse, to verify the dosage before the patient left. He read the papers, looked at the medication, and stopped the discharge process with one raised hand. The patient sat down again. Marcus corrected the instruction, thanked me at the intake desk, and wrote a note so the provider could review the translation template. I went home smelling like sanitizer and paper dust, still carrying the sound of that medicine bag in my head. At dinner, my mother passed Bianca the salad first and said, "That was kind, Tessa, but don't act like translating makes you medical." I looked at the salt grains scattered beside my plate. There were 12 of them. I counted, because counting was easier than answering. What I learned was not that my mother hated me. Hate would have required more attention. I learned that outside our house, people corrected the chart when I noticed a mismatch. Inside our house, noticing was treated like a small habit that might become inconvenient if praised. At 18, Bianca stopped making my work small and tried making my choice disappear. It happened in a community college advising office during first semester registration. The office smelled like toner and peppermint gum, and the carpet had gray tracks from rolling chairs. I had signed up for anatomy because it was required for the nursing sequence. Bianca told my mother I was overloaded. Then she forged my name on a withdrawal slip. I found out only because Grandpa Luis drove me to campus 2 days later and asked why my printed schedule had one fewer class. The slip had 3 lines of blue ink. The T in Tessa leaned too far right. My real T came down straight because my 4th grade teacher had made us practice signatures for thank you notes. Bianca stood in the kitchen that evening and said, "I was helping you. You always overestimate yourself." My mother folded laundry behind her and told me not to make trouble over one class. Grandpa Luis did not fold anything. He put on his reading glasses, looked at the withdrawal slip for 14 seconds, and called it practice. 2 days after that, in 2019, I sat in Grandpa Luis's small kitchen near South Tucson while he laid the forged withdrawal slip beside 3 envelopes I had addressed by hand. The kitchen smelled like coffee grounds, warm tortillas, and stamp pad ink. There was a wall calendar from the Postal Workers Credit Union hanging near the refrigerator, and the little square for that Thursday had Luis's dentist appointment written in black pen. He was 68 then, retired from the postal service but still built like a man who had spent 38 years standing behind counters where people lied badly and signed quickly. He had thick reading glasses, blue-black ink on the side of his right thumb, and a habit of lining envelopes by their edges before opening them. Even his napkins sat square to the table. He did not shout about Bianca. He pointed, first to my real signature on the envelope, then to the withdrawal slip, then to my hand. He told me every person had small habits in writing. Pressure, angle, spacing, the way a name ended when someone was in a hurry, the pause before a middle initial, the confidence of the last stroke. He said he had watched people sign for certified mail for 38 years, and a name was never only letters. My mother had told me to stop making trouble. Bianca had told me she was helping. Luis treated my name like a door that deserved a lock. He stood up slowly, opened the cabinet where he kept old office supplies, and brought a small box to the table. It was plain, brown, and tied with cotton string. The string was rough against my fingers when he slid it toward me. Inside was a brass signature stamp with Tessa Moreno engraved in clean, distinctive script, a black ink pad wrapped in wax paper, and a page labeled Authorized Stamp Use Log. The stamp was heavier than I expected, cool at the edges. The wooden handle had already been worn smooth in one crescent where his thumb had tested it 14 times before giving it to me. I knew because he had stamped a practice page 14 times, each impression lined up in a column, each one drying in the warm kitchen air. Before my first nursing prerequisite, Luis drove me back to the advising office. The truck smelled like vinyl seats heated by the Arizona sun and the peppermint candies he kept in the console. He waited beside me while I filled out the official nursing program form. Then he watched me press the stamp below my signature. Wood against table, metal edge against paper, ink taking my name and making it harder to argue with. He placed one hand over mine, not pressing down, only steadying the moment, and said, "Your name deserves weight." He asked the advising clerk to note that I would use the stamp on formal school documents. Later, when I transferred to Sonoran State University, he had the stamp log notarized and sent a copy to Margaret Harlan in the registrar's office. He included one handwritten note on lined paper. "If this girl's record ever changes without this mark, call her first." That was Luis. He did not make me louder. He made me harder to erase. At 20, I worked overnight shifts as a licensed practical nurse at Desert Valley Clinic while finishing the RN program that made Bianca roll her eyes whenever my textbooks covered the kitchen table. The clinic at 4:30 a.m. had its own weather. Refrigerators hummed. The air tasted faintly metallic from old vents. Coffee burned in the nurse's station pot until it smelled like something scraped from a pan. Latex gloves made my hands feel powdered and tight. One morning, a vaccine shipment arrived with 2 boxes mislabeled after a refrigeration delay. The delivery driver wanted a signature and an exit. The morning team wanted inventory done before patients began arriving at 7. Marcus was charge nurse by then, and he trusted me to check lot numbers before logging anything into storage. I noticed the temperature indicator strip had changed color on one box but not the other. It was small, a pale shift, easy to miss under fluorescent light. I paused the inventory, put both boxes on the counter, and checked the shipping record against the lot numbers. The first box matched the temperature log. The second did not. The cardboard felt damp at one corner, soft where it should have stayed firm. I called Marcus before anyone opened the doses. Then I documented the lot numbers, arrival time, packaging condition, temperature indicator status, and the name of the driver, who tapped his pen against the clipboard 22 times while waiting. Marcus read my note and stopped the box from entering the clinic stock. Later, he told me I had read the quiet part before it became the loud part. I carried that sentence longer than I expected. It matched the shape of what Luis had been teaching me all along. Do not rush toward drama. Check labels. Verify sequence. Trust the mismatch that other people keep stepping around. A borrowed name still leaves a mark. Thursday, May 9, at 6:12 p.m., the evening before graduation, I was in the medication room at Desert Valley Clinic, finishing a double shift before the graduation rehearsal. The room smelled like alcohol wipes, latex gloves, and microwaved coffee drifting in from the nurse's station. The refrigerator motor hummed behind me with the steady patience of a machine that did not care who was tired. My badge reel tapped the counter each time I leaned forward to count the last blister packs. I had 9 labels left. My phone buzzed against the inventory sheet. I almost ignored it because the cabinet was open, and an open medication cabinet deserved more attention than a message. That was the order of things. Secure the medication, then read the phone. So I counted the last 9 labels twice, locked the cabinet, tugged the handle once to confirm, and only then turned the phone over. The subject line read, "RN licensing roster status change withdrawal confirmed." My hands did not shake at first. They stilled. That was different. I opened the email on the step stool beside the counter, where nurses sat when inventory ran long. The metal legs pressed hard circles into the floor. I read the timestamp once, then again. 4:58 p.m. Student portal withdrawal request, confirmed by electronic signature. RN exam authorization paused pending graduation status review. The words did not become clearer with repetition. They became more organized. My pulse moved fast in my throat, but my hand stayed steady enough to write 4 details in the margin of a medication inventory sheet. Time, portal source, signature type, deadline. I used my black retractable pen, the one I kept clipped inside my badge reel. The ink made clean numbers. Then I opened my graduation packet. My seat assignment was still M14. My white pinning stole receipt was still inside. My honor cords were missing from the envelope. I turned the envelope upside down, not because I thought they would fall out, but because sequence mattered. Empty envelope. Missing cords. Roster withdrawal. Portal signature. Graduation tomorrow. The first thing I noticed was not betrayal. It was mismatch. My record had changed without the mark Luis had taught me to leave. I called the emergency records number he had made me save under stamp office. I had laughed when he put it in my contacts 2 years earlier. He had not laughed. He had watched me type it and then made me call once to confirm it rang. At 6:31 p.m., in the clinic break room, Margaret Harlan answered after office hours. The vending machine buzzed behind me. Someone had left half a granola bar on the table, chocolate melting into the wrapper. The room smelled like burned coffee, plastic chair vinyl, and the orange cleaner the night staff used on the counters. I pressed the phone to my ear and stood with my back to the microwave because the light inside kept flickering. Margaret's voice was even enough to make my breathing slow by 2 degrees. She wore that steadiness like other people wore perfume. I told her my name, student ID, date of birth, nursing program, the email subject line. She did not say calm down. People who actually help rarely begin there. She asked me to read the timestamp. Then she asked whether I had submitted any portal requests that afternoon. Then whether I had released my seat, cords, or graduation materials to a family representative. I answered each question with no. She explained that a withdrawal form had been submitted through my student portal, but it did not include the brass stamp impression required for formal nursing record changes on my file. The signature appeared typed, not stamped or hand-verified. A second request had been made to release my graduation seat and honor cords to Bianca Moreno as a family representative. I looked at the half-eaten granola bar and counted the visible oats. There were 17. It kept me from interrupting. Margaret told me she had the notarized stamp log Luis left with the university. She could challenge the change, but I needed to appear in person with the physical stamp before 2 p.m. Friday, May 10, because the RN exam authorization batch closed after graduation certification, 2 p.m., less than 20 hours away. If the licensing roster was not corrected by then, my RN exam authorization could be delayed a full year. Like out that notice, the Rural Health Scholarship would move to the next eligible applicant on paper. And Bianca, with my graduation status blurred, could try stepping into the gap she had created. Margaret did not decorate the facts. She named them plainly. Unauthorized student record alteration, identity verification failure, licensing roster correction, scholarship eligibility, hold, conduct referral. Then she told me my grandfather had been very precise, and precision was useful that night. I closed my eyes for 3 seconds, not longer. When I opened them, the break room looked the same. Buzzing machine, granola wrapper, old bulletin board with 5 expired flu shot notices, my phone warm in my hand. I thanked her and asked what she needed first. By 7:40 p.m., I reached the graduation rehearsal late. Centennial Hall looked larger when I arrived from the clinic, still wearing navy scrubs under a cardigan. Families were not there yet, but the lobby already smelled like carpet glue, stage dust, and the sweetness of floral arrangements waiting in buckets. A banner near the entrance read, "Future Nurses of Arizona." Someone had hung it crooked by less than an inch. I noticed, anyway. Bianca stood under it wearing my white pinning stole over a coral dress. My mother stood beside her taking pictures. Bianca had curled her hair in loose waves, the kind that took 45 minutes and pretended to be effortless. Her lip color was glossy, even under lobby lights. She kept her phone angled toward herself like a mirror between photos. My honor cords were not around her neck yet. They were clipped to her purse strap, gold and white twisted around the handle like decoration. My mother's gold hoops caught the light each time she tilted her head and told Bianca to turn slightly. She was smoothing the front of the stole the way she smoothed tablecloth wrinkles when she wanted no hard conversation to survive contact with the room. When Bianca saw me, her face changed in 2 steps. First surprise, then concern. The concern was for the audience. She told a classmate she was helping fix a misunderstanding because I had always been so overwhelmed. My mother added that Bianca knew how these formal things worked and should talk to people for me. I watched Bianca place one hand over the stole. She had practiced that gesture. Then Maya Torres walked past us with her lavender stethoscope tucked into her tote. She had been waitlisted for the same rural health scholarship package tied to my graduation status. Bianca leaned toward her and said the committee might reconsider who actually represented the family best. Maya stopped for half a second. Her mouth did not open. Her fingers tightened around the tote strap until the lavender tubing bent. That was when the theft became larger than my row. Bianca was not just trying to wear my cords. She was trying to muddy the record long enough for other people to doubt who had earned what. I did not argue in the lobby. There were too many polished floors, too many open phones, too many people waiting for a story they could repeat in the easiest way. Bianca had chosen that room because volume favored her there, so I left. I drove to Luis's house at 8:22 p.m. The Tucson evening smelled like hot asphalt cooling under tires, mesquite smoke from somebody's yard, and rain that had not reached the ground yet. The sky had that bruised purple color that makes the desert look quiet even when traffic is moving. Luis was waiting at his kitchen table, not pacing, waiting. The brass stamp box sat in front of him beside the notarized log and a yellow folder labeled Tessa School Records in his careful block letters. The kitchen smelled like coffee even though it was too late for coffee. Warm tortillas wrapped in a towel and stamp pad ink. His reading glasses rested low on his nose. Blue-black ink marked the side of his right thumb like it had when I was 18. He did not ask whether Bianca had done it. He asked what time the deadline was. I told him 2 p.m. He nodded once and opened the folder. For the next 47 minutes, we worked without raising our voices. The forged portal signature had no stamp impression, no date mark. The spacing around my middle initial was wrong. The seat release request used the word representative twice, which I would never have used for Bianca on a school form. The honor cord pickup authorization had my name typed at the bottom, neat and weightless. Luis placed my real stamp log beside the digital form. He lined the pages by edge, then turned one toward me. I photographed the documents, scanned the log, forwarded everything to Margaret Harlan. Called Marcus Reed for a signed employment verification, showing I had worked the afternoon the portal request was submitted. At 9:03 p.m., I opened the brass stamp box. The metal caught the kitchen light. The handle felt smooth where Luis's thumb had worn it before mine learned the shape. It was the same stamp he had slid toward me after the community college withdrawal slip, the same weight that had made my name feel less like a request. I pressed it onto a blank envelope. The sound was small but solid, wood against table, metal edge, paper taking ink. Luis watched me lift it cleanly. The impression sat dark and distinct, slightly raised where the ink pooled at the downstroke. I ran one finger near it, not over it, because Luis had taught me not to smear proof. A forged name could imitate shape. It could not imitate history. Marcus arrived at 9:18 p.m. after his shift, still wearing navy scrubs, with a folded medication checklist in his breast pocket. He brought printed time cards, a signed letter verifying my clinical hours, and the clinic incident note from the mislabeled vaccine shipment. He had highlighted the section showing my documentation habits, not because it was emotional, but because it was relevant. He did not call Bianca names. He asked what needed verifying. He signed the letter in front of Luis, scanned it, and drove me to the campus records office so I could slide the documents under Margaret Harlan's after-hours drop slot before midnight. The campus walkway smelled like damp concrete and desert plants cooling under sprinklers. The paper made a soft scrape as it passed under the door. I stood there for 5 seconds after it disappeared, not because I expected the door to open, because my name had entered the building before Bianca's performance could. If this story is hitting close to home, comment stamp below. For everyone who has ever had to stay quiet long enough to protect your own name, this next part is where the paper starts answering. Now, back to the story. Friday, May 10, 6:05 a.m. I got ready for graduation in my apartment. The room smelled like steam from the iron, coffee too strong for the hour, and starch from my white dress. The ironing board wobbled on one leg because I had been meaning to fix it for 3 months. My gown hung from the closet door. The empty honor cord envelope sat on the kitchen table beside my nursing pin, my state ID, my student ID, and the brass stamp in its box. I dressed slowly. White dress first, gown folded over one arm. hair pinned back, shoes with a low heel because I knew Centennial Hall had stairs near the side entrance, and I wanted no part of that morning left to chance. The honor cords were gone, but I placed the empty envelope in my bag anyway. I also packed my badge reel. It did not belong at graduation, not officially, but the black retractable pen clipped inside it had written medication counts, patient notes, lot numbers, and the 4 details that kept me from freezing in the clinic. I wanted one part of my working self near me, at 6:27 a.m. I looked at the graduation invitation Luis had taped to his refrigerator and a photo he texted me the night before. He had drawn a small arrow beside my name and written 9:42, arrive early, as if I were a package that needed correct routing. For 11 seconds, I considered not going. I counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4. If Bianca was already in the row, if my mother was already telling people I was confused, if the university said it needed more time, then walking into Centennial Hall meant standing in front of 480 witnesses while my sister wore my work. 5, 6, 7. I could let Margaret correct the record later. I could avoid the hallway. I could tell myself a ceremony was not the degree. 8, 9. But the roster batch closed at 2 p.m. The scholarship depended on verified status. Maya's waitlist depended on a clean record. My RN authorization depended on a system seeing me in person, under my own name. 10, 11. I closed the stamp box. The decision became smaller. Show up with proof. Margaret called at 7:12 a.m. She had reviewed the after-hours documents and contacted Dr. Anita Patel, Assistant Dean of Nursing. The licensing roster could be corrected before 2 p.m., but only if I appeared in person with identification and the physical stamp. Bianca had already asked whether my absence from rehearsal meant I had relinquished my place. I looked at my reflection in the dark microwave door. I looked young, tired, composed enough. Margaret told me not to debate my seat in the hallway. I was to come to the registrar's table before the procession and let the record speak first. I left my apartment at 8:04 a.m. The sun was already hard on the windshield. My steering wheel felt warm under my palms. On the drive, I passed the community clinic where I had first caught the dosage mismatch at 16, the road that led toward Luis's house, and the parking lot where I had once sat after a 1-2-hour shift eating crackers because I was too tired to drive home safely. My life did not flash before me. It presented documentation, places, dates, witnesses. At 8:56 a.m., Luis texted that he and Marcus had parked. Luis added that he had not parked illegally. He believed that detail mattered. It did. Centennial Hall, Friday, May 10, 9:31 a.m. The lobby smelled like hairspray, carnations, and carpet warmed by stage lights. Programs slapped softly against palms. Families shuffled across tile in shoes that squeaked and clicked. Behind the curtain, velvet dust sat in the throat when people breathed too close to it. Someone had overfilled a vase near the entrance, and water had made a dark crescent on the tablecloth. I wore my white dress under my graduation gown. The fabric inside the sleeves scratched lightly at my wrists. The brass stamp box rested in my left hand, not hidden, not displayed. My badge reel was in my bag. I could feel its weight against my hip each time I moved. 480 witnesses, parents, professors, classmates, cousins, hospital recruiters, scholarship committee members, people who had driven 2 hours, people who had brought flowers wrapped in plastic, people who would remember the version of the morning that made the best story. 480 witnesses. Too many people for Bianca to later say it was private. Too many people for my mother to smooth over with cake. Bianca stood near the graduate entrance wearing my white pinning stole and my honor cords. She had placed the cords correctly now, gold side facing outward. And my mother adjusted them at Bianca's shoulder for pictures, her palm moving over the fabric in small, practice strokes. Bianca's coral dress showed beneath the gown she had found somewhere. Her lip color was fresh. Her phone was angled slightly upward, ready to catch her best side. When she saw me, she smiled as if she had been waiting for an audience. My mother moved closer to Bianca instead of toward me. That told me more than any apology could later revise. I walked toward the M row. My assigned marker, M14, stood on a small metal base beside the chairs. The paper label had curled at one corner. Bianca stood beside it like possession was a matter of proximity. Dr. Anita Patel was near the front with a roster page in her hand, wearing a navy blazer with a pen mark on the left cuff. She had always looked like someone who trusted checklists over charm. Bianca leaned toward her with polished concern and said I had been under a lot of pressure and might not be able to participate responsibly. My mother nodded. There it was again. Not accusation, management. Bianca reached one hand toward the honor cords as if they were hers to steady. I heard the twist of the fibers rub against her fingers. I smelled the carnations warming in plastic sleeves. I tasted hairspray in the back of my throat. I stepped toward the row. My mother put 2 fingers around my wrist, lightly, publicly, enough to control, without looking like control. She whispered, "Don't make a scene. Let your sister have one thing." The same line from 9:42 a.m. would later become the line people repeated, but in the moment, it landed quietly, tucked between the rustle of programs and the cough of someone behind me. Maya Torres stopped pinning her own cap. Her lavender stethoscope hung from her tote, and the tubing rested against her wrist. She stared at the cords on Bianca's shoulder. Marcus Reed, standing near the back with Luis, lowered his program. Ruth Salazar, a family friend with silver hair and one long braid, pressed her hand flat against her chest. Dr. Patel looked from Bianca to me, and then down to the roster page, where the missing mark had already begun speaking. The graduates in the M row went quiet. Someone's phone camera kept recording, the tiny red dot bright beside a glitter phone case. Behind the curtain, the band played 6 uncertain notes and stopped. I could hear the soft mechanical click of a stage light cooling. I could feel my mother's fingertips, smooth from lotion, still touching my wrist. Everyone expected me to pull the cords off Bianca, or cry, or run to Luis. I did none of those. I took my wrist back gently and placed both hands around the brass stamp box. Pause here. What do you think Tessa does next? A. Walks out. B. Pulls the cords off Bianca. Or C. Asks the registrar to verify the record. Drop A, B, or C in the comments, and subscribe if you haven't, because the next 10 minutes are the reason this story exists. I turned away from Bianca and walked to the registrar's table near the stage entrance. Margaret Harlan stood behind it with a roster binder, a stack of certification sheets, and a silver ID lanyard with 4 keys resting against her blouse. She looked exactly as she had sounded on the phone, composed, precise, unwilling to be hurried by someone else's noise. I placed my state ID on the table, then my student ID, then the brass stamp box Luis had given me before my first nursing prerequisite. The box made a small sound when it touched the table, smaller than a dropped program, smaller than a cough. Still, 9 people closest to us looked down. I said, "Please verify the record before anyone walks under my name." My voice did not carry to the balcony. It did not need to. Margaret heard me. Dr. Patel heard me. Bianca heard me, because her breath changed behind my shoulder. Margaret opened the roster binder. She did not ask Bianca for her version first. That was the first mercy the room gave me. Sequence. Dr. Patel joined her, standing close enough that the pen mark on her cuff nearly touched the binder ring. Jonathan Ellis, the university conduct officer, came from the side hallway after Margaret sent one text. He had square glasses and a folder tucked under one arm. Before reading the first page, he removed his glasses and held them in his left hand. That detail stayed with me. Some people remove distance before looking directly at a fact. Margaret laid the withdrawal request beside the notarized stamp log, the paper edges aligned. Luis, watching from near the back, stood very still. Margaret confirmed that my file required the brass stamp impression for formal nursing record changes. The withdrawal request had no stamp impression. The seat release request had no stamp impression. The honor cord pickup form contained a typed authorization that did not match the protected signature protocol. She did not accuse first. She verified first. The withdrawal request was not verified. The licensing roster change was suspended, pending fraud review. Miss Tessa Moreno remained the eligible graduate of record. No representative could claim a student's seat, cords, or scholarship authorization without verified consent. Bianca's smile did not disappear all at once. It held too long. Then it thinned at the corners, like paper pulled tight before tearing. Her right hand went to the honor cords and gripped them so tightly the twisted gold cord dug into her finger. Her thumbnail pressed into the braid of the cord until the skin below it whitened. My mother turned toward Bianca. One gold hoop earring swung once and settled. She did not speak. Dr. Anita Patel stepped forward. She did not snatch the cords. She removed them from Bianca's shoulder with the careful movement of someone handling contaminated material. Then she handed them to me and said they belonged to the student of record. The cord fibers were warm from Bianca's body. That was the part I hated most. Not because warmth meant ownership. It did not. But because theft sometimes borrowed the temperature of the person wearing it and asked the room to mistake that for belonging, I held the cords over my forearm. Ruth Salazar stepped beside Luis. Her silver braid lay over one shoulder, and her hand still rested near her collarbone. She said Luis had told her to watch for the stamp, that names left tracks. Her voice trembled on left, but not on tracks. Marcus Reed came forward next with my clinic verification letter. He kept his folded medication checklist in his breast pocket, as always. He confirmed I had been working during the portal withdrawal submission. He gave the time card range, 4:40 to 5:15 p.m., medication room inventory, cabinet lock confirmation, witness initials. He had the clinic incident note from the vaccine shipment too, not because the vaccine mattered to graduation, but because patterns mattered to records. Maya Torres was still near the M row. She looked at Bianca, then at the cords now on my arm, and said the scholarship had never been Bianca's to touch. Not loudly. Close enough. Jonathan Ellis replaced his glasses, then removed them again before speaking. He stated that impersonation of a student in an academic record was not a ceremonial misunderstanding. That sentence shifted the room. Until then, Bianca had been trying to keep the story in the family category: sister, mother, misunderstanding, stress, helping. One thing, Jonathan moved it into the institutional category: record, identity, authorization, fraud. Bianca heard the door close. She laughed once, too sharp, too short. Then she said, "This is ridiculous." I was trying to help her. She has been exhausted. She was going to lose the scholarship anyway. There were 4 lies inside that statement, but Margaret only needed one question. She asked Bianca to explain why she had requested release of the honor cords to herself before I had been notified. Bianca opened her mouth, closed it. My mother stepped in. She said I was embarrassing the family over a line on a computer. Her voice was low but strained, and one hand moved over the tablecloth behind the registrar's table, smoothing a wrinkle that did not exist. That was her habit: make the surface behave and call the room peaceful. Jonathan Ellis looked at my mother and asked whether she understood the line on the computer-controlled licensing authorization. My mother's hand stopped. Bianca tried again. She said I had given her the login months ago, and the family had permission to manage things because I got overwhelmed. The word family did heavy lifting in her mouth. Margaret stated that the portal access came from an IP address associated with the Moreno family home at 4:58 p.m., while my clinic time card showed I was locked in medication room inventory from 4:40 to 5:15. Dr. Patel confirmed the RN licensing roster would be corrected immediately. My exam authorization would move forward. The Rural Health Scholarship remained attached to my verified graduation status. The dean paused the procession, not for drama, for correction. That mattered. The pause was not about Bianca. It was about making sure the right person walked under the right name. The M row stood in place while Dr. Patel placed the honor cords over my shoulders. The fibers still felt warm at first, then they cooled against the back of my neck. My white pinning stole had a faint perfume smell from Bianca's hair products, sweet and artificial. I breathed through my mouth once, then folded the edge flat with 2 fingers. Bianca watched that movement like it offended her more than the finding. She said I could not do this to her in front of everyone. I looked at the 480 witnesses without turning my head much. Families holding flowers, classmates holding caps, recruiters pretending not to watch, the band waiting behind the curtain with instruments lowered, Luis standing with both hands around the stamp box now because Margaret had returned it to him after verification. I had power in that moment. I knew it the way a nurse knows when a number on a monitor has crossed from concern into action. Power has a sound, not always loud, Sometimes it is paper sliding into a binder. Sometimes it is a key on a registrar's lanyard. Sometimes it is an audience, realizing the quiet person has brought more than tears. Before Bianca was escorted away from the graduate entrance, I looked at Jonathan Ellis and said, "I want the record corrected before I want the punishment decided." Then I looked at Bianca. Her cheeks were flushed unevenly, 2 red patches under makeup that had been blended with care an hour earlier. Her right hand still held the cord imprint in her finger, even though the cords were no longer hers. She looked at me as if waiting for me to become the kind of person she could understand. I said, "There are consequences that can follow you for years. I know that. That is why I am going to be careful with mine." End quote. Bianca heard delay and thought she still had room to perform. My mother heard careful and thought I might still protect the family story. Luis heard the difference. He closed the stamp box and nodded once. The ceremony resumed 12 minutes later. I walked in row M, seat 14, with the cords against my neck and the stole lying where it belonged. When the dean reached the M names, my legs felt heavier than I expected. Not weak, heavy, like the morning had added weight to every step. Tessa Moreno. My name crossed the microphone. It sounded ordinary. That was the relief. A name should be allowed to sound ordinary after being defended. I shook the dean's hand. "Doctor." Patel gave me the pin. Margaret stood at the side of the stage with the corrected roster tucked under one arm. Marcus clapped 3 times before everyone else in his section caught up. Maya watched from her row with her lavender stethoscope looped around her wrist like a promise she had made to herself. Ruth cried without hiding it. Luis did not cry. He adjusted his glasses and looked at the program as if confirming delivery. My mother clapped late. Bianca was not in the hall when I crossed the stage. I knew because I looked once at the side aisle and saw only Jonathan Ellis speaking to a campus officer near the door. Afterward, families gathered under the banner. Carnations kept sweating into plastic sleeves. The lobby smelled like frosting from sheet cakes somebody had opened too early. People said congratulations in the cautious tone they use when a celebration has passed through a storm but still expects photographs. I did not let anyone take a picture of me with Bianca's coral dress in the frame. Records do not clap. They answer. 3 days later, Monday, May 13, at 10 a.m. I sat in a university conduct conference room with Bianca, my mother, Margaret Harlan, Dr. Anita Patel, and Jonathan Ellis. The room smelled like dry erase markers, coffee in paper cups, and the carpet glue of old campus buildings. The chairs had textured black arms that scratched lightly against my wrists when I rested my hands too long. A vent rattled every 36 seconds. I counted for the first 4 minutes because nobody spoke until Jonathan finished arranging the papers. The brass stamp box sat closed in front of me. I had brought it because the case was still active, not because I needed to display it. There is a difference between proof and performance. Luis had taught me that too. Jonathan explained the available outcomes: immediate expulsion, permanent transcript notation for identity fraud, removal from volunteer leadership, referral to outside authorities, ban from campus ceremonies. He read each item in the same tone, as if no word deserved more heat than another. Bianca sat across from me in a beige sweater. No glossy lip color that morning. Her phone was face down on the table, but her fingers kept moving toward it and stopping. My mother had her gold hoops on. She kept smoothing the edge of a folder until one corner curled. Dr. Patel looked tired in a way I recognized from clinics after an avoidable error. Not surprised. Tired. Jonathan asked whether I wanted to make a statement before the board discussed sanction recommendations. Bianca inhaled like she planned to speak first. I did not let her. I could ask for the permanent notation. I could ask that every graduate school see exactly what you did before they read anything else about you. I am choosing not to ask for that. Bianca stared at me as if the words had arrived in the wrong language. I continued with the terms I had written the night before on a yellow legal pad at Luis's kitchen table. Bianca could complete her current semester under academic probation instead of immediate expulsion. She would resign from her hospital volunteer leadership role. She would complete 120 documented restitution hours in a non-clinical records office. She would write a corrected statement to the scholarship committee. She would have no access to my records or accounts, and she would sign a formal admission that I did not authorize the withdrawal, the seat release, or the scholarship interference. That last part mattered more than apology. Apologies can be performed for softer lighting. Admissions correct the file. Bianca looked from me to Jonathan, then to Dr. Patel, then back to me. Her confusion was almost childlike for 2 seconds, which made it harder, not easier. She said, "So you're not ruining me?" I answered, "No. You tried to walk under my name. You can finish under yours." My mother began to cry. I did not move toward her. Not because I felt nothing. I felt the pull of it in my body, the old training to make the room easier, to soften my face, to give her a way to say she had always meant well. But Luis's lesson sat in the room with the closed brass box. Mercy is not a cover sheet. It is a signed decision. Bianca's probation terms were entered before noon. She signed the admission with a university witness present. Her hand moved slowly. Her B looked nothing like mine. I noticed. I said nothing. 8 days after graduation, Bianca left a white envelope at Luis's house because I had not answered her calls. Luis called me at 5:22 p.m. and said there was mail for me that had not arrived through the mail. That was how he put it. Exact, even in irritation. I read the note at his kitchen table. The room smelled like coffee and stamp pad ink, the same combination that had followed the brass stamp from origin to evidence. Luis stood at the counter, slicing oranges. The knife tapped the plate 7 times while I unfolded the notebook paper. Bianca wrote that she had told herself I would land on my feet, because I always did. She wrote that she wanted the scholarship interview. She wanted the photo of our mother crying over her graduation. She wanted one day where people looked at her the way they had started looking at me. She did not write the word mistake until the last line. I folded the letter once. Then I placed it in the yellow folder. I did not forgive her in that kitchen. I did not punish her in it either. I sent one text, plain enough to survive being reread. The statement matters more than this letter. 2 weeks later, my mother came to my apartment with a framed photo. I saw the frame first through the peephole. Silver edge, glossy print, her gold hoop earring beside it, swinging because she was shifting her weight. The hallway smelled like laundry detergent from the neighbor's unit and rain on concrete. My hand rested on the doorknob for 5 seconds before I opened it. My mother held out the frame and said she thought I might want to remember the day ended well. It was the wrong photo, Bianca wearing my cords before the correction. My mother had chosen a picture where the lie still looked pretty. I did not invite her in. I looked at the frame, then at my mother's face. She had powdered under her eyes, but the skin there still looked tired. I told her to bring me the picture where I was standing in my own row. For the first time I could remember, she did not answer quickly. Life. She looked at the frame, then at the floor. 3 days later, the correct photo arrived by mail. No note. Just the image of me, in row M, seat 14. Cords corrected. Stole flat. Face composed. Eyes forward. I put it in a drawer for 6 weeks before I could look at it without smelling hairspray. 6 months later, Bianca remained enrolled, but on academic probation. She lost her hospital volunteer leadership title and was barred from representing the university at scholarship events for 1 year. Dr. Patel withdrew the graduate school recommendation and replaced it with neutral enrollment verification. Bianca completed restitution hours in the records archive, scanning forms alphabetically, where every file required the name to match the number. My mother stopped introducing Bianca first at family events. It was awkward because she had to learn a new order in public. At Luis's birthday lunch, with 11 people around the table and a cake that leaned slightly to one side, she called me a registered nurse. Not clinic helper, not almost nurse. Registered nurse. Her voice caught on the second word, but she said it. Maya Torres received an alternate rural health placement after the scholarship committee reviewed the interference. We did not become best friends. That would have been too tidy. We became respectful colleagues, which mattered more. 6 months after graduation, she sent me a photo from her clinic orientation with her lavender stethoscope on a metal desk, and one line saying she checked the name twice. I took my RN exam on schedule and accepted the rural health signing track. The full package became $1. 2M across scholarship, employment commitments, housing support, and loan forgiveness. I started at a border-adjacent community clinic where my Spanish discharge instructions were reviewed by 2 doctors who did not call them cute. They asked me to improve the template. I did. Marcus remained my professional reference and mentor. He still kept a folded medication checklist in his breast pocket. Every few weeks, he sent a message with a job posting, a policy update, or 4 words that meant more than praise. Documentation looks good here. Luis attended my pinning celebration late because he refused to park illegally. He came in 9 minutes after the first toast, carrying a small paper bag of pan dulce and wearing a shirt he had ironed so sharply the sleeves looked edged. Then he told everyone who would listen that my name looked good on a badge. 10 months later, I sat in the HR office of Santa Cruz Rural Health Clinic, signing my first full RN employment contract. The office smelled like printer toner, lemon hand sanitizer, and desert dust coming through an open window. The blinds clicked softly against the frame each time the air conditioner started. The contract was 14 pages. I read every page. The HR coordinator offered me a black pen for the last signature line. I used the pen first. Then, where the clinic allowed an identifying stamp beside the signature, I opened the brass box Luis had given me. The hinge gave its small, familiar sound. The wooden handle fit my hand where time had polished it. The metal edge was cool for only a second. I pressed it down. Clean. The stamp never made me a nurse. It made sure no one else could pretend I had stopped becoming one. Names have fingerprints. If this story stayed with you, like the video and subscribe to By Then I Knew. And in the comments, tell me one thing you had to protect because someone else thought they could borrow it. Use the word name if you know exactly what that costs.